Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South, episode 311. I'm your host, Mike Patton. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode. We're going to take a quick trip around the AFC South in this episode, tapping in with the Tennessee Titans, Houston Texans, Indianapolis Colts, and Jacksonville Jaguars. So go ahead, get snug in the seat. We're going to take a ride around the division. But before we do that, of course, with every episode, we open up with the Get It Off Your Chest segment. And on this episode, I want to talk about right time, wrong time. Let me kind of put it in perspective for you. Now is the right time for the Detroit Lions. Now, I am talking about something outside the AFC South division, which I usually do from time to time on the Get Off Your Chest segment. The Detroit Lions are the best team in football to a lot of people right now. They are doing anything and everything they want to offensively. They're a favorite for some to actually go to the Super Bowl. Yes, the Detroit Lions. Yeah, I know plenty of people wouldn't have thought that maybe a few years ago, but they are a favorite to go to the Super Bowl this year. However, wrong time would be injuries. Just look at that defense and how many injuries they have just accumulated this season. I mean, you lose Aiden Hutchinson. You just had an injury with Carlton Davis. You had a rookie break his leg this past game. I mean, you had one of your best linemen, McNeil, your defensive lineman, I should say, McNeil, suffer an injury as well, and he's gone for the rest of the year. I mean, right time in terms of this the right time for them to rise in the NFC because, no one is kind of stepping forward and saying, hey, we're the team, except for them and Philly, perhaps. And, maybe you could throw Minnesota in there and maybe a Green Bay. But, the Lions are the team, but wrong time with the injuries. We're going to see how those injuries kind of either catch up to them or don't going, through the rest of the season into the postseason. But, right time for them to rise, wrong time for all the injuries. And it's going to be interesting to see if they can overcome those and make it to the goal that plenty have for them, based off this season, which is the Super Bowl. That's the Get Off Your Chest segment for this episode. Episode 311. Like I mentioned before, we're going to cruise around the division in this episode. And I'm going to start it off with the Tennessee Titans. Now, Tennessee Titans are 3-11. They haven't necessarily done as well as maybe some may have thought they would do. But we're not going to start off talking about that. We're going to start off talking about something that is very positive for this team, and that would be running back Tony Pollard. Now, coming into the season, it was talked about by Brian Callahan that they would probably split, that he and Tajay Spears would probably split carries. And in doing so, based upon, situation, who had the hot hand, things like that. And it started out that way to start the season, but as time has gone on, it's become Tony Pollard's backfield with the injuries that Tajay Spears has suffered, along with just the effectiveness of Tony Pollard. He has taken over the Titans backfield. And right now he sits at 18 yards from another 1,000-yard season, which would be his third people. Now, when he left the Dallas Cowboys this offseason, there were Cowboys fans talking pretty greasy about him and how he couldn't stay healthy and all those different things. Well, he's been healthy for this season so far, every single game. He's been out there, of course, healthy enough to play is what I mean. And he's definitely been a bright spot for this offense. It hasn't been pretty at times, but, I can say that people definitely did not expect for Tony Pollard to be a 1,000-yard rusher again and do so on a different team and a different division. And also, might I add, he is second in the AFC in rushing. Yes, he's second in the AFC in rushing, behind Derrick Henry. Go figure. But, of course, we do have to talk about the bad that's going on with the Tennessee Titans. Now, before the season, I predicted that they would finish second in the division. And not every time am I right. I can be wrong from time to time. Hey, it happens. Anybody can be wrong from time to time. But they are, battling with the Jacksonville Jaguars to finish last in the division right now. With what they spent this offseason, which is about 228.2 million, and what they currently are is not matching up to a lot of fans and a lot of the expectations that some fans had. But in a rebuild process, it does take time. You had a lot of injuries, you had a lot of things that did not work out. And unfortunately, it is what it is right now, and they're fighting to finish the season strong. But I do have to give props to Brian Callahan. He wasn't going to take that comment about his team being soft. I don't know where that came from, but it got him a little fired up. He dropped a few cuss words, and I'm pretty sure the players love to see their coach standing up for them and stepping up for them in that manner as well. So, but the big news here this week is, of course, Will Levis is being benched now in favor of Mason Rudolph. Now, before the season, I thought he might have potentially, with a new offense and an offense that's more focused around, accentuating the passing game, things like that, he may have taken a step forward. I thought he would maybe take a step forward. Now, start the season, didn't start well, but then he got it going for a couple games, but the last two games have been pretty rough. And eventually, Brian Callahan and the Titans had enough, and they were going with Mason Rudolph for the rest of what seems like it's probably going to be the rest of the season. I'm pretty sure that Will Levis wasn't happy to hear or to get that news, but it is what it is. And now you have serious questions again at the quarterback position. Will Levis isn't it, and to some people, he was not it from the beginning. And Mason Rudolph isn't your long-term answer. So it's going to be interesting just to see, how they finish the season, one, and secondly, what they do with the quarterback position this offseason. Now, I will say they still do have money to go out there and get quarterbacks if they want in terms of free agency or trade or anything of that nature. And there are some names out there. Now, I've heard the name Sam Darnold mentioned, connected with the Tennessee Titans. I don't know how real that is or if that's even, been mentioned in the building. Of course, some people will throw Kirk Cousins out there. Don't know how real that is. He just got benched in Atlanta for rookie Michael Penix Jr. So there are going to be some names being thrown out there, but it'll be interesting just to watch what the Titans do at that position. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to drive on over to the Tennessee Titans' old stomping ground, which would be Houston. We're going to, talk a little bit about those Houston Texans up next on Touring the AFC South.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off on these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get this EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right, and we are back on Touring the AFC South, episode 311, cruising around the division. Now, like I mentioned before the commercial break, we are going to talk about the Houston Texans. Now, the Houston Texans are leading the division. They have won the division second year in a row, and I'm pretty sure they're excited about that. But what they probably aren't excited about is the expectation going into the season and how they're actually playing. But we're going to get into that. But I want to bring up a bright spot and something that I talked about before the season. Now, before the season, I ranked the cornerbacks in this division. One of the cornerbacks I did rate was Stingley Jr. I did have him behind L'Jarius Sneed. Now, let's keep in mind, this is coming off L'Jarius Sneed not allowing any touchdowns and facing so many elite wide receivers in the 2023 season. No one would have really expected that he wouldn't be healthy the entire season with the Tennessee Titans, and that's exactly what happened. While he wasn't being healthy and playing, Derek Stingley Jr. was getting it done. I mean, if you watch his last game, he had a beautiful pick. Like he basically caught the pass like he was the wide receiver on the play. And I have to admit, hey, Derek Stingley is the best cornerback in this division. And he went out there and proved it. You know, like I mentioned, it was before the season that was mentioned. And of course, that's going off of things that you've seen getting into the year. Derek Stingley has definitely made that jump, and he definitely is that guy at the cornerback position, especially in this division. And it's been great to kind of see him stay healthy, one, and two, reaching his potential and maybe closing in on his full potential, because there may be another level he can go to. We'll see. But, another bright spot I want to talk about is Joe Mixon. Now, it wasn't a big trade that everyone's talked about a lot, but it was a good addition because, they had Devin Singletary last year, kind of smallish running back. He did fit the system in Houston with Bobby Slowick, an offense coordinator. However, he wasn't a guy that's going to finish and finish off runs and dole out punishment as a running back. So they kind of upgraded, got Joe Mixon, bigger guy, a little older, but definitely a guy that presses the line of scrimmage and is going to finish runs. So he's gotten there, and he's fourth in the AFC. He's rushed for 910 yards, and he's only played in 11 games. Imagine what he does if he's actually, in all those games. He had a lower body injury that happened. I believe he got rolled up on a tackle, and that's how he was out for those games that he missed. I did not quite expect him to have quite a good season, as he is. I expect him to be solid, but just not as good as he is. And to be quite honest, he has been the most consistent player on the Houston Texans offense in terms of production. I mean, he has been. He's been pretty steady. But what had been pretty steady is the expectation and the Texans meeting the expectations. Now, the Texans, a lot of people had them, there was plenty of people that had them maybe a dark horse to go to the Super Bowl or the AFC Championship game. And, that's based off of what CJ Stroud did last season and just how they played. And defensively, they're getting better. They're getting healthy with Christian Harris coming back, linebacker out of Alabama. Really, really good athlete. And he did some things in that AFC wildcard game last year versus the Cleveland Browns for sure. But, defensively, they're getting there. Offensively, it just seems like the offensive line is taking a major step back. And, offensively, in terms of passing game, they're taking a major step back. Run game, they're pretty solid there. But in turn, that is hindered CJ Stroud and the things that he's doing. Let me give you these numbers real quick. Year one, CJ Stroud, 4,108 yards, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. This season, 3,248 yards, 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So almost doubled his interceptions in less games. He hadn't finished the season yet, folks. So, some of that is on him in terms of the decision making, and not necessarily being as accurate or maybe as confident in the different things. And some of that is on the pressure and kind of running around a little bit for his life, which he was a little bit more calmer under pressure last year, but he is running a lot more this year. And it's not because he wants to, it's because the offensive line is not holding up. And they're trying different combinations and putting different pieces here, there, and everywhere. And unfortunately, it's just not working. So it's going to be interesting just to see what they can do to kind of, I guess, patch things up. But, I'm not sure I see them going to an AFC title game this year. AFC South, an AFC championship game. I'm not sure I see that because this offensive line leaves a lot to be desired. Defense is solid, but they've had some losses there. You know, Jalen Petrie is a loss there. You do bring in Bullock, which is the rookie out of USC at safety, and he's solid. But you are going to miss Petrie, who's playing some of his best football. I mean, it'll just be interesting just to see if they can reach those lofty expectations that plenty placed upon them this season. I mean, it's amazing. No one had any expectation for them last year. And then going into this season, everyone has lofty expectations for them this year. However, they probably will not reach those lofty expectations, in my opinion, just because I'm not sure you can fix that offensive line during the season. I just don't see it. But you know, I can admit, hey, I thought they might go to the AFC title game or be good enough to go there, but I'm definitely not sure enough with that offensive line. That offensive line, like I mentioned, leaves a lot to be desired. All right, we're gonna go to our next team. We're gonna go up north, the northernmost AFC South team, which is the Indianapolis Colts. You know, it's funny. The Indianapolis Colts are in the AFC South, but Miami is in the AFC East. I mean, can you just put the Miami in the AFC South and the Colts in the AFC East? I mean, I thought about that, but hey, you know, that's what they wanted. And of course, it's a natural rivalry, or what was a natural rivalry even more when Peyton Manning was playing for the Colts, and then of course playing against the Titans. So, but it is what it is, and these are the things that they have put together, being the NFL, them being the NFL. Of course, like I mentioned, the Indianapolis Colts. Boy, oh boy, where do we start? Where do we start? Well, we're going to start with the game they played this past Sunday versus the Denver Broncos. Wow, is all I have to say. I mean, you're looking at it, you know, they lost this game. If you could have had one more touchdown, that would have been Jonathan Taylor. But he lets go of the ball before he crosses the goal line. Now, this happened in the Titans and Bengals game this past Sunday. A defender picked up a fumble for the Bengals, ran it all the way back 60 yards, but he needed to run it back 61 yards, and he fumbled the ball back in the end zone, gave the ball back to the Titans. This game, Jonathan Taylor is running, and it's like he's shot out of a cannon, and he's gone. Yet he fumbles the ball or lets go of the ball before he crossed the goal line. Now, I have to admit, hey, he stepped up and said, hey, that was my responsibility. He took the responsibility for what happened after the game, and I can respect that. But, man, finish through the goal line. Come on now. We're you know, you've been playing football for a long time. We got to know these things. Come on now. That's just inexcusable. And then, of course, you know, the double pass, speaking of inexcusable, there was a double pass that happened. And of course, a linebacker for the Denver Broncos picks that double pass off, the second one off, and he runs it in for a touchdown, effectively sealing the game for the Denver Broncos. I just don't understand that play right there. But, hey, you're trying some things. You do what you do. But, boy, oh, boy, it makes you just do this. And for those that aren't watching, I just smacked myself on the forehead like, wow, I can't believe that happened, you know. But, yeah, it did. Speaking of things that I wasn't sure was going to happen or can't believe that happened, it seems like this year, even with Anthony Richardson and them knowing they have a young quarterback to still groom and grow, that the Colts have not, you know, put their, you know, hitched their horse, you know, I guess it's a pun since they're the Colts, but they haven't hitched their horse to Jonathan Taylor. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, you would think they would focus with the running game and then everything off the running game with Anthony Richardson, but it seemed like the play calling was kind of a little bit inconsistent with that, and along with the amount of handoffs he would get to finish off games. I know that Shane Steichen had mentioned, who's the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, he had mentioned about passing the score and running the win. It seemed like a lot of the time this season he was doing the opposite. But, you know, of course, some games he got it going and they finished off games. But it just seems like for the majority of the time, it just wasn't quite even the entire way. So, you know, that's something I wonder about. You know, they're not finishing the way that plenty thought they would. And some thought they would be better. there's got to be some questions going on in Indianapolis. And I know that his seat's not hot. Shane Steichen probably going right now as hot as probably it could be if this is the result come next year around this time. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a little bit of heat to his seat right now, but it's probably get hotter going in next season, if not mid-season, and they are not necessarily living up to the expectations that they have. That they meaning the front office and Jim Irsay for this team. I mean, and of course his GM. Of course, I always hear Colts fans talking about the GM of the Indianapolis Colts, but just want to kind of focus one last little bit on Anthony Richardson. Now, he was 17-38, 172 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in that game. And for the season, 47% completion percentage, 17 E's, 11 interceptions. It's been rough. It's been rough. Some of it's been on him. Some of it's been on, different players and receivers not catching footballs. And just altogether, it's not been great. But I would say I'm not giving up on that young man yet because, like how some people mentioned with John, I'm not saying he's Josh Allen, just to get that out of the way. I'm not saying he's Josh Allen. But, Josh Allen wasn't great his first couple of years. And then, of course, he kind of got it going and figured some things out. That's because they stuck with him. Now, at this point, Anthony Richardson, he was a top 5 draft pick. I don't think it's time to give up or say he's not it just yet. I think maybe kind of change the game plan just a little bit to kind of suit more of the things and to help him grow. But you do those things, you just maybe things will be all right when it comes to the Indianapolis Colts. I still have faith in him. He's got a rocket arm. He's got a running game. Just mix those things up just a little bit better, into a better concoction. You putting out concoctions that are making Colts fans mad and sick instead of making them happy and joyous. So just think about that one. But we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, going to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars and their season on touring the AFC South.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on touring the AFC South. And like I mentioned before the commercial break, we are going to talk about these Jacksonville Jaguars. For some Jacksonville Jaguars fans, they'll probably say I'm saving the best for last, but honestly, this is just how the order fell. But as far as the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're right there with the Tennessee Titans battling for who's going to finish last in the division. And I know for Jacksonville fans, they certainly did not expect this. I mean, honestly, I did and I didn't. I expected them to finish last, but I did not expect their record to look like this. They have the same exact record as the Tennessee Titans, 3-11. It's bad. It's bad. It is, especially with the type of talent that they have in certain positions. You would think they would do better, but we're going to get into that. But I'm not going to dish too much on that. But I do have to talk about the bright spot on this team, and that would be Mr. Bryan Thomas Jr. Now, Bryan Thomas Jr. coming into this season, I liked the talent, just wasn't for sure how much he would get it going in his rookie season. I thought Malik Neighbors would be the guy to get it going, and Malik Neighbors has. But Bryan Thomas Jr. every single week shows up and shows out. He does. He has played very good football. Sure, he's on a team that's not playing very well overall, but he is showing up every single week. He is basically making things happen. He's got Jacksonville fans mad when he doesn't take it the distance on just some plays. I was talking to Jamal St. Cyr about that maybe a few weeks back about Bryan Thomas Jr. But yeah, I mean, he is incredible, and he has done some great things on the football field, and the future is bright. I mean, he set I believe he set a franchise or a rookie record for receiving yards or touchdowns or something of that nature with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But whatever he's doing down there, man, it is amazing to watch. And it looks like he's not running full speed, but he really is. He's like one of those guys that looks like they're not running full speed, but you can't catch him. Yeah, that's Bryan Thomas Jr. right there. And he's definitely doing this thing. Man, props to him. For sure. Now, let's talk about a few other things. Now, there is a person in this backfield that isn't, in terms of the Jacksonville Jaguars backfield, that isn't, I don't know what to say about him. I will say that. I will leave it at that. That's Travis Etienne. Now, Travis Etienne, he came in, he was drafted the same year as Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence got that extension. I don't know if they're approaching Travis Etienne to talk about that with him or not, but based off of this season, I'm not so sure they should. Just because, I mean, looking at him, he's second on the team in rushing to a backup in Tank Bigsby, and he's actually second by a pretty large margin, or a pretty good margin, 644 yards to 456 yards. Yes, he has not. He's a starting running back in the NFL, and he has not rushed for 500 yards yet. That's not good. And with him being a former first round pick, I mean, I know he's talented, but of course you got to stay on the field, one, and two, you've got to produce when you are on the field. And it just seems like Tank Bigsby is actually outproducing Travis Etienne. Now, with that being the case, I mean, you have to have some serious thoughts to think, is he going to be here? Currently, the way it looks to me, I'm not for sure. I am not for sure if Travis Etienne is going to make it on another contract with the Jaguars. We'll see what happens. I don't know the future, but just what I'm looking at, Tank Bigsby is outperforming him. And I know injuries happen and things like that happen too, but still, though, you haven't reached 500 yards and you've been healthy you've been out there for most of the season. You should have reached 500 yards at this point. But that's just me and my thinking. But hey, another thing, just looking at this defense, I mean, Ryan Nielsen, I know he was talked about being an upgrade to the defense coordinator for last season for the Jaguars. Don't really seem like it. You got Eric Armstead, and, he's talented. And I remember seeing him play for the 49ers and playing in the interior. It just seems like things have not clicked for him, or just I don't know what's going on. It just seems like something's just off when it comes to Eric Armstead. Savage not necessarily making as big an impact as maybe some Jacksonville fans would like for him to have had. I mean, Darby's been solid and been at some points and bad at others, but yeah, he's still there. He's still plugging away and playing away. And I mean, you look at Trayvon Walker, he definitely has brought it every single game. Josh Hines Allen's kind of disappeared a little bit after getting his big contract, which that's probably some disappointing to some Jacksonville fans as well. But yeah, it's just a lot going on in Jacksonville, and all of that culminating with Doug Peterson. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, it's just a lot going on, and he's getting kind of a little bristly with the media, and it just does not look like this all came together like Shad Khan thought it might come together. No, it just hasn't, and I know Jacksonville fans are not very happy about it. We'll see where they end up at the end of the season. They do play the Tennessee Titans in a couple weeks in Jacksonville, so that could be the game to see who finishes in last or who finishes in third. So we'll see what happens when it comes to that. And that's the end of our show. Definitely thank you for going on this ride with me around the division. Of course, we started with Tennessee, went to Houston, went to Indianapolis, and finished it in the Sunshine State with Jacksonville. I just want to thank you all for tuning into this episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter, word to Prince, at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82 on the artist formerly known as Twitter. And you can also find Mike Patton 82, which is me, on Blue Sky. All right. And you can also find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE _general_MP. And you can also find Touring the AFC South on YouTube at the Mike Patton Network. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. We're out. Peace.